Have you ever wondered why you need to pay yourself first? Yes, I did say need, because if you don't pay yourself first, it can hold some real dire consequences. Frank Thomas here from Wealth Generation Strategies. Today, I was doing a bit of a review on all the videos I've created on this channel, and I realized that yes, I've talked about this topic in other videos, but I've never dedicated a video to this topic alone. And I believe it's probably the most important concept to wealth creation, and I truly believe that. You got to learn how to pay yourself first. There's a lot of great reasons to learn how to pay yourself first, but before you come to realize why you need to learn this essential skill, let's define what this actually means. You would think that you already are paying yourself first, right? Well, you got a job, you get a paycheck, you've paid yourself first. And I have heard people say that to me. I'm already paying myself first. I got a job, I get a paycheck. Let's look at this a little deeper. Did you really pay yourself first? Really? Yes, you did get paid for using your talents and your time, and you received a cash award, so you got paid. But what happens to the money you received? And that's the important question. Most people have expenses. As a matter of fact, I don't know who doesn't have expenses that need to get paid from every paycheck. Let's say we have our fictional hero here that gets paid a paycheck of $2,000 every 2 weeks as an example. First, our hero will need to keep a bit aside from each of his paychecks for rent because he's got to live somewhere. In Western Canada, it's not uncommon to have to save around $900 from each paycheck. We're only $1,800 a month. So let's say we take away $900 right off the top. That will leave our hero with about $1,100. That's it. But that's just the very beginning of his expenses. He also has to pay for transportation. And the cheapest being public transit. But the most expensive is, let's say, buying a relatively new and inexpensive car. For argument's sake, let's just say our hero needs to save $200 from each paycheck for transportation. This leaves our hero with $900. Next, they need to pay for things like their cell phone plan, an internet connection, and possibly even utilities like electricity and possibly even natural gas. This will probably take another $150 from each paycheck. Now, this leaves our hero with only $750. Going forward, they gotta eat, so they need to buy groceries. This can easily take $250 from each paycheck. Now, this doesn't include eating out. This will now leave our hero with only $500. Let's slot another $250 per paycheck just for fun. This is money that they use to eat out, go to entertainment events like movies or concerts or whatever it is. And this will leave our hero with approximately $250 a paycheck. Now, it's reasonable to allocate about $100 from each paycheck for things like clothing, cleaning supplies, and other incidentals of life. Now, this leaves our hero with about $150. Well, what just happened here? Our hero got paid $2,000, and now they only have $150 left. Did they really keep that money for themselves, or did the needs of life make you just a custodian for that money during that 2-week period? In all honesty, it's not unusual to discover that our hero spends his whole paycheck before they get the next one, and then they start looking at things like credit cards or payday loans. This means they are owing money at the end of every pay period. In other words, they're falling into a negative balance. They've spent everything they made, now they owe somebody else money. This cycle can continue their whole lives. Unless they decide to make a change, they will literally die broke one day. And I have seen this happen many, many times. I've read studies in Canada and the United States, and it's not unusual to see over 50% of the living population, when they hit 65 and retirement, they are dead broke. They have no money, nothing. This is why you need to learn how to pay yourself first. This is a learnt skill. You just don't do it. You just don't make it happen. When you pay yourself first, you have to learn to decide to make you an expense in your budget. And you literally pay yourself before anybody else gets paid from your paycheck. So in other words, paycheck, $2,000, and our hero will say, hero, $200. And you can simply do this by having an alternative bank account where you transfer some of the money to that very first before you pay anything else. But first, be sure if you're enjoying this video, give it a like. And if you want to see more videos from this guy right here, be sure to subscribe. It's my promise that I'm going to help you become more wealthy. So, moving forward here, you've decided to make you an expense from each and every paycheck. Personally, I'd recommend slicing away 10% of what you brought home before any expenses are taken off. It's just a real simple way. You can increase that in the future. But what happens if now your expenses are expensive to have to be paid will not permit you to save 10%? Well, save something, because saving something is better than not saving anything at all. Let's say our hero can save 10% of the original $2,000 or $200 from each paycheck. They'll put that away into a separate account, and it will be partially a rainy day fund, aka like an emergency fund, and a long-term savings fund. Okay, in the beginning it'll be a bit of both, because when an emergency comes, you don't want to pull out Mr. Visa or Mr. MasterCard. You just want to pay that emergency, make it go away. The worst decision you can make is to try and pay yourself last, by the way. If you do that, you'll discover that you have nothing left to pay yourself with. Believe it or not, if you pay yourself last with whatever's left over, there is never going to be anything left over. Let's move forward. Now, our hero is starting to build their savings muscle by saving $200 from each and every paycheck that they get every 2 weeks. Now, let me ask you a question. After 1 year, how much do you think our hero has saved off the top of your head? If they found a good investment, better than a bank account, of course, to save in, and let's say they got 7%, and I think 7% is very reasonable, they'll have saved close to $5,400 after 1 year. Hey, that's better than nothing. But what does that look like after 5 years? Same investment, same $200 every fortnight, our hero will have saved over $31,200. Now, we got something here. Now, it might not sound like much, but it is. Now, our hero, if they decide to do so, can now afford to put a down payment on an asset that will grow over time, like a place of their own. The simplest investment that will pay you back everything you put into it, if you do it right, is real estate, and here's why. If they bought an apartment condo for, let's say, $300,000, they put down that $31,000 that they've saved as a down payment, and they purchased it at a fair price, then they'll realize an appreciation on that whole $300,000 of that condo for how many years they live in it. On average, the housing market in Canada rises by about 6% per year, which means they'll see an appreciation of roughly $18,000 per year, at least in the first few years, and that should go up over time. Yes, there's costs for the mortgage, but a house also becomes the forced savings vehicle. Even better, unlike rent, you normally get back everything you put into that mortgage, plus the interest as well. Hence why you're getting 6% on the whole value of the place. So it's going to pay you even a little bit more than what you put into it, which is awesome. That's what you want to see. Now, the cool thing is, if you were renting, the landlord isn't going to give you a cent back. If anything, they're going to charge you a damage deposit on the way out. With your own place, if you've bought smartly and you've taken care of it, you can turn around and get all that money back. Or you can use it for your next place, which is a bigger, nicer place. Now, a second thing that occurs is that our hero will have to build up that emergency fund. Emergencies happen to all of us, and emergencies always cost money. Whether it's a blown up car, a new fridge. Just recently, we had the hot water heater blow up, and it was $5,000. If I didn't have an emergency fund, I would have been hooped. That was a big emergency for us. Having a ready emergency fund can take the sting out of an emergency because you've already planned for that emergency and the expense associated with it. This will buy you a whole lot of peace of mind going forward. if you learn how to save an emergency fund of at least 3 to 6 months of your expenses, you can weather a majority of emergencies that happen, including getting laid off for a few months. But let's take paying yourself first just one step further. And this is truly an important step for you to realize. I like to use the expression, don't rob from your future self. And let me explain exactly what that means. How much is a dollar you save today worth in 10, 20, or 30 years from now? For our example, let's become a tad more aggressive. And let's say we're getting a return 10%. We're doing a little bit better. We've learned how to make better investments. Let's say we make this even a tad more interesting. Let's say that you've saved $10,000. Now you decide to put this $10,000 into that investment for 10 years. You don't add any more to it, but just the first $10,000. So what is it worth in 10 years? Well, it's worth $27,070. In 20 years, it's worth $73,280. And in 30 years, it's worth $198,374. If you decided to spend that $10,000 on something like that European trip you've always wanted to take, that trip is actually costing your future self that is 30 years older almost $200,000. That's why I call it robbing from your future self. Now realize these numbers don't even consider our hero continuing to contribute to this fund after the initial deposit of $10,000. Now, let's just say they continue to put their $200 from every paycheck into that fund for the next 10, 20, and 30 years. Where's our hero going to be? Well, after 10 years, they would have saved $116,575, which roughly 50% was interest. After 20 years, this would become $405,080. Wow. I wonder what 30 years looks like. Well, after 30 years, this number would become a staggering $1.186 million. Now, if you never decide to pay yourself first, you've robbed yourself of over $1 million from your future self. Think about that. If somebody came and emptied $1 million out of your bank account, would you be upset? If you wouldn't, there's something wrong with you, because I'd be furious. I'd be really upset. So why are you doing it to yourself? Why would you rob from your future self, your 30-year self from now? You're hopefully going to get there one day. Something to think about. Can you see why you need to pay yourself first? It won't happen if you don't start. Like I said, this is a skill, and it's a muscle that you need to develop. So starting the next paycheck, figure out what you can set aside as your first expense and put your name right next to it. Once you've mastered paying yourself first, you now need to ask yourself if you have any chance of retiring early. A lot of people really are able to once they start flexing this muscle. And if you're truly serious about making this a life goal for yourself, you need to check out the video showing up on the screen right now. It will talk to you about 6 rules of the rich you need to know if you want to retire early. So be sure to check it out. Otherwise, thank you so much for joining me today, and I hope to see you in the next video and start paying ourselves first.